The new buzzword in India's growth story is services exports. While India's goods exports clocked just a 7.5% growth in the April-Feb period and actually declined 9% if you only count February over February, India's services exports have shot up 30% in the same April to February period and a whopping 37% if you took February alone. Professor Richard Baldwin, who has written a whole paper for the World Bank, points out that even globally, goods trade peaked in 2008 and is actually falling as a percentage of world GDP. But global services trade as a percentage of world GDP has steadily climbed from 9% in 1990 to 12% of world GDP in 2010 to almost double, 20% in 2020. Back to India, another point to note is that India's services exports is not entirely a software story. In fact, in April-December 2022, software exports grew by 21%, but business services, that is service exports other than software, grew by 38%. Now, among the people who are contributing in a big way to these services exports are the big four: EY, Deloitte, KPMG and PwC. So to discuss what's going right for India in services exports and what are the prospects here, I'm joined by Rajiv Memani, CEO, EY India, Debasish Mishra, Chief Growth Officer at Deloitte, and Bala Chandran, the partner in charge of managed services at KPMG India. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. Let me start with you, Rajiv. Economists are just stunned. Goods are not doing well, but our current account is in balance because of the services exports. And everybody was saying software will do badly because, US banks and European banks are in a funk. But never mind, our services exports are still growing. What's going so damn right?
So, I would say last 2-3 years have been very strong for software exports, for the entire BPM, BPO, business process services, whatever name you want to give it. And the reason for that are many, Lata. But I would say going forward, given what's happening in the global economy, the growth may reduce slightly, but there will be still strong growth. And the reason, so I would say that the growth in services, whether it's software or BPO, will be higher than what is the economic growth. And the reason for that is a lot of change is happening in terms of digital transformation. And a lot of that digital transformation is happening in countries like India. India is probably one of the largest contributors to that. As we went through COVID, a lot of organizations realized that, remote working is not an issue. And so whether you're working in Seattle or Phoenix or in Bangalore, it really doesn't make a difference. And that accelerated the entire process. The issues that we have on talent globally, the supply chain on talent. Mm-hmm. I think if you look at in India, the ability for organizations to scale at a competitive cost, mm-hmm, and deliver high quality service, and the availability of talent, especially engineering talent, English-speaking talent, mm-hmm, accounting talent, finance talent, is very, very high. Okay. So that is also driving this growth. Okay. So I think this is a tremendous opportunity for India. I think it's a sustainable growth story. It's a great value enhancer to the economy. Mm. But the growth numbers, will depend to some extent on the growth in economy. But because of digital transformation, because of cost challenges, cost optimization that needs to be done, okay, more and more companies around the world are looking at India as a massive opportunity. Okay.
No, I take your point. Actually, the paper I referred to, which was published in the World Bank by Richard Baldwin, he's a professor of international economics in Switzerland, in Geneva. He also refers to the same thing. It's basically Digitech. Policy never prevented the migration of services, but it was not possible. Now, a lot of intermediary services, as he calls it, like accounting, audit, are able to migrate because of Digitech. Now, Bala, on that point, what all is migrating? What's new in terms of services that Indians are rendering abroad? We always knew that the Infosys and the TCSs wrote codes for finance companies and banks. But what else are we doing?
See, the whole non-software in terms of what is happening within the certain space has been the growth of finance and accounting, as you were talking earlier, where things have significantly sort of moved, and there's still a significant market left for people to sort of catch up. Areas like health services, especially after the pandemic, we have seen a significant increase in health services. Financial services is another area where it is picking up a lot of pace in terms of growth. And last but not least is a significant growth that we're seeing in the digital, as well as in terms of media content, as well as research and development.
Okay.
So these are the emerging trends we're seeing as the industry is picking up.
Okay. What about Deloitte itself, Debasish? I'm told that of the big four, you guys have the largest number of people employed to service foreign companies. Can you tell us the growth in numbers itself? And what are the kinds of services that are newly being offered? I mean, what's the new story?
Yeah, so Lata, you're right that we are the largest professional services firm, and amazingly, every fourth Deloitte employee on this earth is based out of India. So we are now more than 100,000 people based out of India, both the USI and the Deloitte in South Asia. And it's not only the software services, as you mentioned in your opening remark, and all kinds of services are getting delivered out of India. We have accounting services, audit services, R&D. In fact, the oil services companies are now getting their 3D seismic data from oil fields all over the world and getting it analyzed in India and sending back the results to back to their companies. And if you look at it, the NASSCOM report itself says that more than 50% of the GCCs are non-IT kind of GCCs now.
Okay.
So, and that's also fundamentally changing because of the talent availability and the kind of kind of a shift that's happening in the Western talent market.
Okay.
There are a lot of this talent which is not matching the skill set that is available. The job openings are going, they are going open for long period of time. Immigration laws are not allowing to import talent. So as a result, many of these things are getting done out of countries like India.
Okay.
And that's why the reason for this booming export of services.
Fair point. Rajiv, I believe EY also has a very large set of people who are servicing foreign companies. Again, the same question to you. Any of the newer services, I guess you all were also offering software and technology like the IT companies. But are there newer things like audit, etc.? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you tell me what are the newer services that appear to be coming India's way?
Yeah, so Lata, we have close to 100,000 people in India. And between our Indian firm and the Global Delivery Center, almost 65,000 people in our Global Delivery Center. And that's expanding at a very massive clip. So I think any service that we are rendering globally today, that potentially can be rendered in India. So if you were to look at financial services, if you're looking at customer journeys, you're looking at actuarial, you're looking at risk modeling, you're looking at obviously the normal sort of traditional audit, tax, diligence, valuations, technology implementations, analytics, cloud migration, the entire thing around AI, machine learning. So all range of services are being rendered.
And these were not done, say, 3 years back?
I think they were being done. I won't say they were not being done, but the scale is changing.
Okay.
And I think now people have realized what's the art of possible. And I would say by and large, and it's true for capability centers, it's true for others as well. I think once people start experiencing the talent in India, I think the defining point in this is really talent in India. And once people start experiencing the talent, I would say what manufacturing is to China, what one experiences when you start manufacturing in China, whether it's the efficiency, is the ports, it's the logistics cost, is the interface with the government. The same thing you experience with services in India.
Okay.
Once you start experiencing that, then you can, depending on what's the ability of that organization to handle change and how that organization is growing and what the other issues are.
Okay.
The ability to transition more and more into India, to look at more and more growth through India, to become more competitive,
Okay.
leveraging India, scaling up much more faster.
Okay.
I think that all that is happening, is what is driving this growth.
What's the rate of growth for this outsourcing activity in EY itself, you would say? I mean, are you all growing at 20% clip, 25% clip?
No, I would say it's faster than that. And just to give, and this is my estimate, my view is, Lata, that as Big Four put together, and I think we are always slammed for various reasons, Big Four put together would be exporting services in the range of $8 to $10 billion through capability centers, through their respective sort of firms. And I would say, and even the accounting firms, the other accounting firms, large accounting firms, Indian accounting firms, they are also realizing this. And they are also proactively engaging with different, so it's not just restricted to Big Four. I think Big Four obviously was started doing this, but I can now see that happening across mid-sized firms, smaller firms, special boutique firms that are coming up, and it's a great thing. I mean, a fantastic. It's great news for the country overall.
Yeah, I was speaking to ASA Accounting, ASA Associates, and they said that in 2022 itself they plan to recruit 30 people for their foreign partners, CPAs. They ended up needing 70. And this year, they believe they may have to recruit 150. So that's a small company which is saying that growth is much beyond what they expected in the start of the year. Now, both, Rajiv and Debasish are referring to this GCC. Just to elaborate to those of you who are not familiar with this abbreviation, they're referring to Global Capability Centers. Basically, it's a subsidiary of a multinational company set up in India to do these kinds of middle-level services, like offering what they are saying, quality assurance, after-sales services, accounting, audit, those kinds of things. Now, I wanted to ask you, Debasish, do you guys also help multinationals set up their own captive centers? And if you do, is there an increase in that also?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have practices that help multinationals in setting up their the global in-house centers or global captive centers, as you call it. And also there is a segment of clientele that we have which may not have that kind of a large requirement. Let's say 200, 300, capacity kind of setup. We also host them in our setup and provide them with that service. So that, they don't have to have that entire headache of setting up the admin, the processes and all that. So that you carve out certain segment of our, resources for them and kind of host in our setup. That's also something which is coming up in a big way. Because as you know that there are already some 1,400, 1,500 GCCs that are present in India, and almost every year we are getting almost 50, 60, and there's a NASSCOM Deloitte report which says that we'll reach around 2,000 GCCs. But there are many in the pipeline who may not have the bandwidth to do a full-fledged setup, which can come to professional services firms like ours.
Fair enough. So very quickly, if you can give me a number, like, when I said 20% to Rajiv, he said way more than that. At what clip is your outsourcing growing? Both the GCCs that you manage or that you handhold, as well as in-house. Is it growing at 20, 25, 30? What?
No, much more than that. In fact, in last 3 years, I would say that we have grown, this particular segment must have grown in excess of 50%.
Ooh, that's what is telling on the numbers then. Bala, what would your guess be? I'm referring to both your in-house as well as, if you are hand-holding multinationals to set up their own global captive centers.
Second, we are no different in terms of what we are delivering to the clients, whether it is a setup to sort of doing models like BOTs, which are again has significant sort of market sort of coverage on that one, and also to sort of stabilize and sort of operate. So we also get into the stage of operate as well.
Okay.
So which means that it becomes more of an end-to-end service provider as opposed to focusing on trying to help them on a specific solution-based offering.
Okay.
In terms of what you're talking about, the growth aspect of it, we have actually seen an increase of more than 40% in terms of the overall growth. If I sort of have to take at least for the last 2 years, despite pandemic being sort of one such place where people were expecting things to slow down, we actually saw the opposite of it, where we actually saw a significant demand. And our ability to sort of deliver during the pandemic in a complete work offline mode has significantly improved in terms of ability to sort of operate remote.
Yes.
That has actually increased the confidence into the global market that the clients can actually operate in remote. And people who have been thinking that while outsourcing is a huge process to sort of do in terms of managing the operation, they rely on firms like us to sort of guide them and coach them and implement and optimize the overall operations.
Got that. So 40, that is the magical number. 40 to 50% growth over the last couple of years is what you guys are telling me. That's huge. Now, what are the red and the green flags going ahead? Those questions after a very quick break.